Hey Zach.
Hey Ron.
How you doing?
Good.
So you had some questions?
I do. Now, what kind of debts are discharged in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy?
The Chapter 7 bankruptcy is famous for discharging unsecured creditors. For example, credit cards is the most common one. If you have $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 worth of credit cards, that type of debt is considered unsecured because it's not secured on anything, meaning it's not secured to your house or to a car. So, for the most part in a 7, assuming that you meet criteria, you would be able to discharge all of that. And that runs the gamut of Visa, MasterCard, American Express. It could be to regular credit cards that you have with retail stores, JCPenney's types of cards, Kohl's, that sort of thing. There are certain types of debts where you go to a certain vendor and when you made the purchase, in the underlying paperwork you weren't aware of it, but they had some clauses in there that said that they have a secured interest against it. For example, let's suppose you go down to the local electronics store and in their agreement it says that if you go and you buy a big screen TV, if you attempt to discharge that debt in your bankruptcy, they actually have the right to come back and say, all right, we'll surrender and give it back. They keep a secured interest. I run into that from time to time, and we have ways of dealing with that. So that's the unsecured. There's also something that's called priority, and there's also something that's called secured. A secured debt is, for example, your house. If you have a loan and loan is secured against the house, that means that even if you decided that you didn't want to make payments on the house, that the lender would be able to foreclose on the house because they have a secured interest in that. There's also something that's called a priority, which commonly would be something like your tax debt. Let's suppose that you owed some money to New York State for New York State taxes. Let's suppose you owed some money to the IRS. You didn't pay tax money on tax loans that you've owed, say, for the past 3 years. That's considered a form of a debt. It's considered priority debt. It's not secured. It's not unsecured. It's considered priority. For the most part, for tax debt, income tax debt within the past 3 years, you actually would have to pay that back, but it's you could work out a payment plan with the lender for doing that, and it's not really secured on a house, and it's not unsecured where you could just write it off. So those would be a couple of different criterias.
Alright, so what about my car payments? What about my house payments?
Well, with regards to the house payment, when the lender made the loan, it was like we said before, it was considered a secured loan. So, assuming that you are current for the moment on your monthly payments, and then you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the lender's not going to mess with you. They're happy you're current with them. In fact, you're discharging your unsecured debts, so you're in a better position to continue making payments to them than you may have been in the past 10 years. And them being secured means that if you don't make the payments, they can then foreclose and go after the house. And even in a bankruptcy, if you're not making payments to them, they can actually make a motion to lift the stay to come after you in a bankruptcy if you're not making the payments. If you're current, they would have no reason to want to pursue that because you're making the payments. Similarly, with a car, if you have a car that's financed, then your lender is expecting you to make those payments. And if you don't make those payments during the bankruptcy or after the bankruptcy, you're asking for trouble. They can come after the car and repossess the car if you're not remaining current with the payments on the car.
Now, what about child support, alimony? What about those? Are those able to be discharged?
Nope. There's, for example, let's suppose that you owe child support and you have an ongoing child support obligation. That doesn't go away because the kids don't go away. The kids still need the support. And one can make the argument that by filing for bankruptcy and discharging all that other debt that's behind you, you're actually in a position to be able to make payments because you're not making monthly payments on credit card debt with crazy interest rates. So those debts do not go away. You are obligated to continue if you have any kind of domestic agreement where you're paying maintenance to a spouse or if you're paying child support to the children of a prior marriage. That type of debt does not go away.
Alright. Well, thanks for clearing that up, Ron.
Okay.